Today we're going to learn the fourth and final method that you can use to solve quadratic equations algebraically, and it's called the quadratic formula. Okay, and we're going to start out by looking at the quadratic formula, and then there are a couple ways that you can memorize this. So given a quadratic equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, you can solve using the quadratic formula by plugging in the coefficients and the constants. So notice in that formula you don't see any x's in there. We're going to take the coefficients for the x squared and the x, and then the constant, plug them in and simplify. Now, the formula looks kind of complicated. I'm going to add an x equals in front of there. But there is a song that is pretty catchy and can get stuck in your head that will help you memorize it. So, here's what I will tell you. If this little girl can memorize it, you can too.
Twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
Good job, Emily. What about the x equals?
X equals negative b.
Uh-huh.
X equals negative b plus or minus the square root, base minus 4c, all over 2.
Okay, so like I said, if she can memorize it, you can too. Here's another version that's a little bit easier to understand. That's by actually a local school, and hopefully you'll play this over and over again so it gets stuck in your head and you don't forget the formula. So I'm going to play that one more time. Okay, so like I said, a nice easy way to memorize that. Can I play again? Okay. Definitely something to memorize. You will use it often in this unit and also in Algebra 2 and Pre-Calculus and sometimes in Geometry. So let's go ahead and talk about how to use it. Okay, so when we are looking at our steps to using the quadratic formula, we are going to start by moving all the terms to the left side of the equation so that we have an equals 0 there. And you'll notice that that's already done for us. We already have a 0 on the right side. The second step is going to be to label a, b, and c. And notice I already did that. A is 4, b is -5, c is -51. Once we have those labeled, we can actually plug them in to the quadratic formula. And if you have that memorized, it makes a difference. Apologize. Let me get rid of that extra. I'm trying to clean my screen. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that down and kind of talk our way through that formula. We have x equals -b, or the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Okay, so we're going to plug everything in, a, b, and c, using parentheses when we do that. So we're going to do the opposite of b, so since b is -5, that's going to change to a +5, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so -5 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is -51, all over 2 times a. Now, when we're simplifying this, there are a couple of steps we're going to follow. We're going to start with step 4 here, and it says to simplify the inside of the square root and then multiply the denominator, all in the same step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my calculator and I'm going to type in the negative 5 in parentheses squared minus 4 parentheses negative 51. So all I'm doing is typing this, not the square root part, but everything on the inside of it, into my calculator. And when I do that, I get 841 for an answer. So I really have 5 plus or minus the square root of 841 all over, and then 2 times 4 on the bottom gives me 8. So that's step 4. All I did was type that stuff that I highlighted into my calculator and got my answer. Step 5 says to take the square root. So I'm going to go ahead and take the square root of that answer, which is 841. So the square root of 841 gives me 29. Once you take the square root, do not put the square root symbol back around that 29. That's a really common mistake that I see. If I take the square root of 841 and I get 29, I just get 29. I don't get the square root of 29. Okay, so that was step 5. Step 6 says to simplify the top of the fraction and then reduce and divide. Don't forget that you have both answers. So this goes back to completing the square. Remember when we have the plus or minus? We're going to split this into 2 parts. We're going to do 5 plus 29 divided by 8, and we're going to do 5 minus 29 divided by 8. Okay? We can type those in our calculator. The only catch is that you need to put parentheses around the numerator. So if I do 5 plus 29 over 8, I get 4.25. And if I do 5 minus 29 over 8, I should get negative 3. Okay. So quadratic formula. 6 steps to follow. As long as you plug it in correctly and know how to use your calculator, you should be in pretty good shape. Let's do one more. Okay, move all the terms to the left side. So notice in this one, I have a negative 2 on the right. I'm going to go ahead and do plus 2 on both sides. So I'm left with 3x squared plus 4x minus 5 equals 0. Once I've done that, I'm going to label my a, b, and c. So a is 3, b is 4, c is negative 5. We're going to plug those into our quadratic formula. So once again, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so when we plug these in, negative b is the same thing as saying opposite of b. So if my b is positive 4, I'm going to make it negative. So negative 4 plus or minus the square root of b, which is 4, squared, minus 4 times our a, which is 3, times our c, which is negative 5. All over 2a, so 2 times a is 2 times 3. Okay, so now that we have this plugged in, to simplify, you're going to follow really 3 steps. So we're going to type in 4 parentheses squared minus 4 parentheses 3 parentheses negative 5 and hit enter. When we do that, we get 76. So we are going to do negative 4 possibly plus or minus the square root of 76 all divided by 6. Now, we can't actually take the square root of 76 and get a whole number. So we're going to go ahead and do a factor tree, and I'm going to do that off to the side here and simplify. The biggest perfect square that goes into 76 is 4, and it's 4 times 19. So if I break that down, the square root of 4 is 2, and the 19 is going to stay on the inside of the square root because we can't do anything with that. Okay, and since we have that square root in there, we really can't do much else to simplify The one thing you can check is if you look at your constant in your denominator and your coefficient, if those have a greatest common factor, we can actually divide those by that. Okay? So what goes into negative 4, 2, and 6? I can divide them all by 2. So if I divide by 2, I get negative 2 plus or minus 1 square root of 19 all over 6 divided by 2 is 3. So that would be my final answer there. Okay, go ahead and try the next two. I will point out this. If you're missing that middle term, you can do it like this. Okay, so that might help you out a little bit. Put a 0x in there. Once you finish those, get your homework, practice it, have us check them if you need help with them, and once you understand it, you can take the quiz and get ready to move on to the next unit. Have a great day.